Now we're on. Happy to see you all. Today is a bit of a special day to honor and lots of gratitude to having an amazing dog in my life that has contributed so much in showing me what's truly possible with tools, with access, with consciousness, with possibilities that I didn't know. I mean, I've been with animals since I was 1 year old. I demanded a dog when I was one. I did not receive it. I borrowed lots of them. So I've been definitely not giving up on that. I've had 3 dogs so far. I'm definitely going to have more. We'll see when that shows up again. I don't know. I'm not going out and getting a new one directly. And it's been amazing to see the differences of dogs. And the last one definitely was the one that was demanding, asking for a lot more, and showing me how the access tools work in action, both for me, for us, for a lot of people around me, and for her, and how she also chose more and more all the time, depending also, interesting what space there was between us, but also what I could choose, what she could choose. And it's been it's a journey adventure where you learn all the time something new. And I'm very grateful because one of the things that I see animals do, they do live now, here, they're present, and they change at any time. They don't go around and being unhappy or sad. That does happen, but it's not their natural state. Joy is usually their natural state. And I saw that and I was like, why aren't we choosing it? Why am I not choosing that all the time? And it was very interesting to start the journey, because she was the 1 year old when I found access and started doing access. And so she was just a big puppy, overexcited, coming to her first bars classes. I remember her she could jump straight up. So she would jump on the massage table when somebody's laying there receiving the bars and was up in their face. I'm like, oh, Sinya, that doesn't work. There was a little bit of things that needed to be learned as well, and taught. And then any tool I used, she showed me something with it, every tool. But if I had a conclusions, projections, expectations, points of views, she would be very clear that doesn't work for her, like extremely clear. As a puppy, less, because she just has a lot of energy with doing everything. But she shows me also I have to be 100% clear and determined what I choose. I can be 99%. If you have kids or animals, you know this. If we're like, oh, but she's so cute, you're lost, you're gone. They don't listen if you're not 100% clear what your choice is. 100%, that's not 95. And I was like, well, and when I heard Gary saying it and I saw the behavior on my dog, I was like, oh, that's correct. Oh, bummer. So a lot of things I got to see all the time in action. Who does it belong to? I saw that with her very early. She shook off every encounter she had with anybody, what was her friend dog, if unsecure, like if she found her best playmate, anytime we moved on, she would shake it off and be her. If it was pleasant, unpleasant, it didn't matter, she would shake it off. And it's one thing I always saw, like, oh, she always goes back to her. Because every encounter you make, energies connect, and there's a certain change, intertwineness, and exchange of energies. And it was just so beautiful to see that. And I was like, huh, because of what I understood, there was no difference if it was positive or negative, if I want to quote it like that. That was the same. It was just an energy and change and shift and shift. And I was like, oh, so it's not about who does it belong to when it is an energy I don't like. It's about everything. So I'm 100% me. And I was like, oh, so this clarity animals have, and you can invite them to be more. It's not always like, it's almost like animals need to hear what you would like them to also contribute with. And the more I was clear with Sinya, the more she showed me was possible. The more. I didn't get this in the beginning because of course it's a dog, but it was fun. Jonas came into my life. He got a dog and a girlfriend directly, and he didn't know how to handle dogs. He wasn't trained. He hadn't had animals before, and so he did whatever he thought would work, and he talked to her a lot. I gave him a little bit specifics about dogs, but very little. I stopped doing that when I saw he created differently, and then I started challenging all the things we project at animals or project at dogs. And this is in every area. They are like this, or we have tendency to be totally okay with certain things that we decide they are. And then on others, we just like, huh? We're not totally sure with that. And that's where we usually ask questions. But the things we have decided they are, we don't ask. And this is when I started asking about these areas. That's when it became extremely interesting to see how she unfolded capacities that she most likely always had. But when I was willing to not have any definitions about her, they're more like tendencies or something, she could show up in a different way towards me and towards other people too. And this is where I love. And this is, I don't think there's a difference between people and animal more than sometimes it's clearer with animals, as we have sometimes less attached points of views, that they are in a very smaller area. For people, we often have a lot of judgments and all scenarios and history and all that. And with animals, it's interesting because often an animal reaches closer to, or even goes by your barriers in a very different way. Sinya was with me a lot in my classes, all the classes in Sweden, and then after a couple of years, I think in the fourth, when she was 4 years old, 4 or 5, she said yes to getting vaccination because he needed to vaccinate to go to Denmark or come back. And before that, she would just say no. And I always asked her, do you want this? And she's like, no. It was just like flat, the energy. So that was a no. And then at some point she was like, oh, Denmark. And like, there was an energy anytime I was thinking about going over to Denmark. And I was like, do you want to join? And she's like, yeah. She doesn't do yeah. The energy just went like that. And I was like, oh yeah, thank you. And then I was like, you're sure? We need to get you a passport. You need 1 vaccination. And we did it. And then she started traveling. So she has been to access classes all over Europe, even been in Italy and in Germany and Denmark and in France, Spain. Like, she's been traveling a lot. And I never thought it would be that easy to travel with a dog, but she also knows how to create what she would like. What I appreciate a lot, because then I had a co-creation with her. So when I traveling, I would ask her to find an amazing hotel for both of us. And then I would Google, or I would go in hotels or something and find it really quickly. Within 10, 15 minutes, I would find where we were going to live. And those are things where I see, well, that's really cool when you also know and be willing to allow an animal to contribute to you. But you also ask for it. You tell the animal. And what I noticed with myself is when I knew it was correct, there was no doubt. It's incredible how much more it opened up to. And this is where I can relate that myself when I ask for something or I do something in my own life and I don't trust or believe or think it's like, yeah, maybe, then it doesn't really work. And the same thing was with Sinya, although it's like a partnership, you build it up. And at some point it was super clear when there was a yes or no, and I never doubted it. I knew sometimes I could change it or contribute to it or create more or do something different. So it's also being in the question and asking more. And as she never liked any conclusions, it was really interesting. For example, not even conclusions what she wants to eat. Like, she would just look at it and go away if I hadn't asked questions. And I was like, you're intense, darling. And she's like, yeah, I want that. And I was like, I don't have that. It just like, I get a picture or something in my head. And I studied at some point animal communication, but then I also saw there was a lot of boxes, how it's supposed to be, what you're supposed to do. And I thought it was too much work. And then when I started going to access classes and heard Gary, how he talks to animals, then I read the Talk to the Animals, and then everything is energy. So there's no difference if I'm talking to my business, to an animal, to a person, to the wall. There is literally no difference. The only difference is if I make a difference. Everything can contribute. Everything has awareness. Everything has molecule. Everything's alive. It's up to me if I am willing to create with it. For me, creating with it is asking a question, acknowledging it or her in this point. I acknowledge Sinya to be aware. I acknowledge she has choice. I also asked for her to choose. I demanded of her to be present, because she basically usually demanded me to be present, but once in a while, if she came home from a dog sitter that maybe was different and she would check out there, and she wouldn't be super present when she came home. Often she just slept over a night and then she was done. But if she wasn't, I would like ask her, hey, can you please check in? This is what I would like. And then often, because I would keep the energy there, I would keep being present with, hey, here, this is what I would like. And it's just an energy to be. She doesn't have to do anything. And when she basically something like clicked in or was there, it's just a choice. And this is what I see, it's just a choice. And a dog has that choice too. And I asked her to do that. I mean, she did the same thing to me or my guests. People were at home, she would go and like hit them on the leg because they were flying away in their thoughts. And I was like, Sinya, don't do that all the time. But she would. She would tell people, or she would go up to them so they would check in because they would get more present if they were with her. And this is where it's so much fun to see what you can create with animals. But I also had to let go of all the points of views about dog training, dog communication. I'm referring to dogs, but this can be in any animal. This became the same thing when I started now working with horses in 2-3 years, the same thing. No points of views about horses, but they are blah, blah, blah. Have we asked them a question? Like, you have tendencies, you have things that are more, if you look at a dog, it loves going out, playing, meeting other dogs, and there's a lot of action they want to do. Well, the animal is a different way, and a horse is different than a dog. But then we put them in a lot of boxes, how they should live up to, how their races, how they're blah, blah, blah. My dog was half Labrador. It's the most snobby food dog I've ever met. You could have food laying around everywhere. She would like, no, oh God, when she ate and there fell things on the side, when she wouldn't pick it up. And I was like, where did you go? And we also had this training when she was younger that she would eat when I give it and serve it to her. It's basically also a training so she doesn't go and eat outside. But again, some dogs will never want to, they just love food and will eat anything. And I also see some dogs check out when they eat, so they're not conscious when they're eating. So it also makes them just eat without chewing, just look at it, and they don't even think if they're hungry, if they're full or anything. And then people do put, well, it's a Labrador, it's a blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, they have a tendency, but it doesn't mean they have to have this. You could also change it. You could also train them to do something different. You can also be totally present when they eat. There's so many things that we can do if we don't define them in a certain category, how they usually be. And this is where I love it, because if you start asking your dog or your animal questions, they will start contributing with different information than you maybe thought was so. You could maybe think, this is where I love it, because the more I was willing to try all the tools of access with Sinya and with other dogs, because I started also helping other dogs. I didn't do dog training, a certain dog, I did more problem dog training. And I really like that. I help people that couldn't manage their dogs, or things like, I take the cases that I liked. Jonas and I had even some dogs in our home for a week just to see what's possible, because then when you take them away from their environment, things change. You all know that. Your dog will also show up different in any home they are. I've seen my dog on a table, and I was like, that's not my dog, but there was a photo. Yes, that's my dog. But that household was totally unstructured, totally a disaster. They were all over the place, all the dogs. There were lots of dogs. And I was like, well, they just adjust and be what's required in that home. And it's hilarious to see that. And that's why I'm like, what if we all were willing to ask questions? And if I would destroy and create, if everybody would destroy and create their points of views about the animal they have in their life, or animals in general, because a lot of people don't receive from animals because it's not their own, or they don't meet them often, or they're not close to them. Instead of not having a point of view, I have to own an animal to connect, contribute, create with. I could create with an animal that I don't own. Maybe I just have to connect more often to it. And this is where I'm like, what else is possible if we're willing to let go of our judgments? It's the same with people. But I love it looking at animals because they have a world they're connected to that we are also, but sometimes I don't think we choose it consciously. They're just being. Sinya, when I asked Sinya how the world looks like for her, it didn't take many hours until she could show me. And then we were out on a field and I just touched her and the whole world changed how she saw it. And I was like, whoa, the energy, the colors. I mean, when they say the animals are sorted colorblind or something, I'm like, yeah, oh boy, they're just fooling us. But it doesn't mean they'll show up in the same way that we do. But she showed me how she sees energy, how she sees smells, because she saw smells. She doesn't only, she senses them, so you can smell them, but she also sees them. And it's not the same sight that we have. So a sight is different in animals than in people. She had no problem seeing in the dark or anything like that. It's very interesting if we're willing to not project our reality towards them, but see the reality they're seeing. And they have a different connection to creation. They have a different connection to universe. They see the world very different. We projected from our point of view what we have decided is caring, good, what we like, don't like, behavioral stuff. A lot of things we look through our filter. And I started asking many years for Sinya to show me how it looks for her. And that's where, for me, creation changed my life, because she showed me the dimensions that are there if I don't have a point of view, if I don't have a judgment, if I don't have a conclusion, and how magical creation is. We had a disagreement because I travel a lot, and I asked her if that's okay. And I said, this is happening, and if it doesn't work for you being with me, just be clear to me. I always asked her for clarity, and I always asked her to be clear in a way I could receive it, I would get it. And if I didn't get it, I would ask her, Sinya, you have to show me this in a different way, because I'm not getting super clear what you really mean. But I often told her, hey, I'm going away for this time. If the dogs that I usually have are occupied, it's like, hey, you need to find somebody, because I'm going away for this time. I'll be the ears and eyes and everything. I will call people. I'll put it on Facebook. I often post it on my blog. In the beginning, I had a blog. And people were reading there and on Facebook. And at some point, somebody would connect or call me. Very often in the last minute. And at some point, I said to Sinya, this last minute, because it always worked out. And I always knew it. But I was like, finding the dog sitter the day or 2 days before you fly away for 3 weeks to whatever, Australia. I'm just telling you, I wasn't totally relaxed. And at some point, I said to Sinya, could you please give me this 1 week ahead? Everything else is great. Find the people just 1 week ahead, so it works. It worked for me better than in the day before. And the next time we were up for it, I just said 1 week ahead, and we usually had 2 or 3 weeks, not more. I was doing a little bit last minute thing, so I guess that was totally okay for her, of course. But then, of course, when I asked for a week before, a person called that I somehow knew but didn't know could be a dog sitter, and arranged it. And I was like, and I thanked her. I acknowledged her every time she created something. And I could always tell there's an energy there. So I love working with animals because you get very energetically aware if you're willing to. If you try to figure out, if you try to think, it doesn't really work. It's almost like the connection goes away when you start thinking too much. When you ask questions, you're willing to allow, because there's always communication going on with you, your animals, with everything you're in your life. Your house can tell you lots of things. Your car can tell you lots of things. Animal can tell you lots of things. But we have to be willing to be different. It's not that they'll email you. They won't send you a text message. If she could, she would. But it was almost like that sometimes. I was like, hey, if you require me in the night, because she didn't bark and she never went to the door and tried to scratch it to go out. She was just silent. But she would always wake me up if she had something. That was hilarious. Anytime they had a stomach thing, that didn't happen very often, she would wake me up and I would know. It was like that. So she knew how to wake up people. It's not only me, so with other people too. And I trusted her in doing that. And I trusted my body to know or react or to be awake. And that's something I was very clear I would like that. So it's a commitment. It's also like a deal and deliver between you and your dog or your animal, and be clear on that. And I trusted her to be willing to do that with me too. So it was very clear. I set up some things, but they were more energetically commitments for creation. And when something didn't work out well, then I changed it. And I asked and I looked at what I have to be. would I have to be willing to be here to make this work or change? And then I would ask Sinya, hey, Sinya, what's going on? What can we do? What can you change? So that's the fun part. Oh, you're saying, oh, that's good. Yeah, I have a 4-month-old Labrador doodle that eats everything. Oh my God. They have a tendency to do that, yes. When puppies come from a herd, they often have been like almost like fighting for their food. So there can be an adjustment time because they often have more dogs, not always. But then they're like, I need to eat fast because I need to survive kind of thing. And then start telling your dog. I always talk to Sinya, hey, Sinya, there's enough food. There's always enough food. And it took a while just to tip her over. But she was very picky I had a really picky dog from the beginning, but I also told her that this is what we're doing. And then I was very clear, there's always food. There's always abundance of food. And then one of the things I also picked up is if I don't have that towards me personally, there's always great food. I love food if you know me. And I will choose the best I can in this moment. Not always, but I have a tendency to do that. And I could see anytime I did not choose, she would reflect that too. So don't ask your dog to do something you're not doing. Puppies have a little bit of different because they're all over the place. I mean, Sinya was like ADHD on steroids when she was like, oh my Jesus God. I don't know if you have these, these etheric oils, in your living oils. I use them sometimes under her paws just to get her down a little bit. I have to hold her, like hold the hot, and then she would die. She'd like sleep for a couple of hours or an hour. But she had so much energy. She had so much energy, she caught her own tail and bit it and start bleeding. She wasn't many months old, maybe 4 or 5. It never stopped bleeding. It took weeks. The vet even suggested once, like, maybe we should cut it off. I'm like, you're kidding me, They weren't really having any good suggestions because it wags all, it's like here, it moves, and it was a tip. So when it kind of healed, doink, it hit the wall or hit the ground, or she rolled around. She was like this small, like it was just really tiny when it happened. I was like, oh my God. So it took a while to even get that to heal. And I had at the end, I was like, I was doing a lot of things with her. I was like, it worked out. But they are a little bit all over their place. But we're willing to look at what would you like to create with your animal. And sometimes I sat down with a dog that had eating behavior. I sat down and feeded it one by one and basically acknowledged it energetically when it was calm or eating it. When it chewed, it got even more energetically acknowledgement. And sometimes loud too. So one of the things I never do with animals, I don't talk like sweet baby talk or I never change my voice to, because I do a lot of dog training has a lot, but you're supposed to use your voice more. No, I use my voice. I can be happy in my voice, but I don't change it. A lot of people go high on their voice pitching or cute, or baby talk. Just don't do baby talk. I remember Sinya, sometimes she'll give you a interesting look if you did baby talk on her. And I was like, So what would you like to create with your animal? That's always the questions I'm looking at for everybody, because you can get aware of a lot of things. If something doesn't work for you, you feel like, hey, that energy isn't really relaxed or calm, or that with feeding for me, like an animal can come to the point, it is not living in the woods. So it also knows this. If you also know that there's always food, and you don't have to fight for your food, because dogs don't have to do that mostly in their homes, not always. So if they have lots of dogs, maybe, but you can create that relaxation with food. Sinya would take a bite and go for a walk and then go back and eat a little bit. And she would even do it when other dogs were around. The other problem was that other dogs would take it, so you'd have to separate her often from the other dogs. She would relaxed eat. She would go, and she would chew them. She would chew the bites. And I was like, and then for me, that became normal how she was being. So when I saw other dogs, I'm like, that's weird. They just swallow them. So there's no right and wrong, but I just see the relaxation she had. So then I started instituting that with other dogs as well. And she chose also to show that to other dogs when she was with other dogs. And what I really liked, doesn't mean it changes. And it definitely doesn't change if the owner doesn't want to change it. And that's one thing. If the owner doesn't want to change something, it doesn't happen. It will often go back to the same behavior, even if you help the dog to get there. 2, if you treat yourself in a different way than you expect your dog. Interesting. I remember sometimes when I don't know, I wasn't doing diet stuff, but I was eating different, or I wanted to have a day or half a day just with fruit. I sometimes love just fruit days. And that is a change in my behavior of eating. No? So anytime I changed any behavior of eating, she wouldn't eat up. And I never really do diets, but I would eat differently. So any change in my behavior of eating, she would not eat up. And I looked at her, and when I kept on seeing that a couple of times, you're like, what's this? Oh, that's for me. Well, thank you, Sinya. Don't require it, but thank you so much. What would happen if you always acknowledge your animal for what they're creating or they're creating with you? And what are you willing to ask them, demand of them? Again, you have to demand and ask that of yourself too. So those are things I really can emphasize on a lot, because a lot of people, it's the same. We sometimes want the better for our kids and for ourselves. Well, yeah, I get that. It's beautiful to look at, but the kids look at what you're choosing. So when you choose greater, they have that to look forward to. They are looking for that inspiration with you. And I see very similar things with animals too. Working with horses, it even became more clear because they're like big, and the tools of access consciousness work really well with any animal, any size of animal. I always have also seen, I've helped a lot of dogs move on, like leave their bodies, die, and all those things. It has been something that death has always been very easy for me in general. Not when Sinya left, because that's personal. So it's nothing about the death per se. It's about my attachment, and I love having her around, and she's physically not there. You know, all the missing things when you see a dog waking up and they just like, the days, and her days are just joyful. So you have this contribution over the whole day. Now it's just like, I have to choose it all the time. Not a problem. But that joyful, and the creation, I got so much awareness, how much we were creating every day, also on our walks. It's creation walks, and we were talking. And then also one thing I saw that she was really good at, we did really good together, we just like the energy together, and it was always connected with nature. It was never disconnected of nature. And when I walked in the park a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days after she left, I saw that energy, how connected we were with nature, where she was a big part of that. And it's as easy for me to choose it. It was just so living and alive being with her. And I was like, that's what we all the time chose and did things. And I was asked her, where do we want to go? Like almost every day we did something different. We could go to a cafe together. Some cafes are okay, or a restaurant. I would always take her with me. I'm very lucky that very good restaurants in Helsingborg accept dogs. There is, in Sweden, it's not common. It's changed a lot because there's no law anymore that forbids you to have dogs in a restaurant. But as it has been, it keeps on being, so they don't adjust. But the good thing is, it has changed. There were several restaurants. Now it's almost popular because there was a great article in Anjo and other restaurants that accepted dogs. And it became a thing like, are you dog friendly or not? Restaurants didn't like that in Sweden or in Helsingborg. So we always went to restaurants together. So I had this thing where we did things together. At least we did one thing. And I would ask her what she would also like to do. And there was different energies showing up. And I always included her in the things I created. And we did a lot. She was also with me with all my clients, as many classes as I could. She would be as the facilitation she did with people. I couldn't receive the same thing. I couldn't create the same thing because people don't have judgments towards animals when they're very clear. You know, when there's bullshit, she would just like, like that. And I was like, oh my God. And she would correctly do it so everybody notices it. I'm like, I don't have to say a word. This is an awesome co-facilitator. It's the same with the horses. It's such a magical thing because it's for me. I have the most amazing co-facilitators next to me. I don't have to do the work. They do it. They're amazing. And this is a big gift for me to see that, acknowledge that, and create with it. It's something I create actively with it. So what are you willing to create with your animals or kids or whatever? Because I see very similar energies with kids. We just look at animals and kids differently, but energetically creation, very similar, very similar. Sometimes even have easier in some areas with kids because you can talk directly and they understand the language in the way that will answer in words. And sometimes it's easier when it's energetically because there's a different world and there's not as much filter with the words. So whatever you have, you can explore even greater. And I just adore that. I adore it. So I just wonder if anybody has any questions or things you want to look at. I will just continue otherwise talking about possibilities with animals and dogs and Sinya, because that's something I'm very grateful for what she has shown me, and the gratitude of, my dad just posted a very cute photo. He was a dog sitter, last dog sitter. He was one of the dog sitters the last couple of years for Sinya. And this is the crazy part. We often drove and met up in Puttgarden, Rugby. So I would drive down to Rugby, take the ferry over to Puttgarden, and he would pick her up. So it's the furthest dog sitter I've ever had. I would sometimes drive down to Hannover, fly out of Hannover to classes. Last 2 years, I would say, especially last year a lot. They created an amazing relationship, and my dad saw how incredibly easy it works to talk to a dog. Because I told my dad, you have to talk to her, you have to tell her what's going on, what you're doing, and so on. And when they were out walking, sometimes you just stop, just like, I'm not continuing. And what happened often when a dad said, no, we're going to the market or the apotheke or whatever, and then we're going home. The moment he said what was happening, she would start walking. No problem. And the same thing when they were at home and she would come up and want to go out. My dad would say, no, in 20 minutes, you can lay down. It's in 20 minutes. She would just go and lay down and then go up again in 20 minutes. She was extremely precise with time. I know that animals know time very well. I still don't know exactly how they do it, but there's definitely an energy. Time is something they do not have problems with. I never tell any. I learned lesson very, very well from Sinya that if I make a deal and deliver, that's often what I did. I was working and she would come up and she wouldn't like go energetically that we have to go out. And if I was middle of something, I would say to her, Sinya, I need, and if I was not aware and I would take a time that didn't work, 10 minutes. 10 minutes go very quickly. She would come up to me in 10 minutes and bug me again, like, hey, I'm going out now. And I was like, oh boy, we did do a commitment here. And I would acknowledge that, or I would say, I'm sorry. Very often I would acknowledge that, hey, yes, I did say 10 minutes, let's go. This is a level of commitment and deliver I want to have. So when I say something, I want to also stick to my word, towards me, towards you, towards my animals. There's no difference from me. So I saw that very early. She did that in class once, or it was an evening taster in Helsingborg. I still remember it. Don't remember the topic, but the room was very full, and we did online as well. And this was hilarious because she was with me, laying in her dog bed next to me, and I was standing there and talking. And we had a little delay because we had it online connected too, and that was hilarious. So we maybe started 15 minutes late. So when the class ended, say it was going to end at 9. She comes up, she wakes up, comes up and sits and stares at me. And I like, Sinya. And she's like, are we going now? And for her, it's like now, not in 5 minutes after we pack, it's now. And I was like, no. And then I said, I'm so sorry, Sinya. We started a little late, so we're going to have at least have 15 minutes. Well, let's have 15 minutes. And then she's like, you can go and rest a little bit more. She would go to her bed and then sleep again. Exactly 50 minutes. Exactly what I said to the minute. She woke up. And we weren't even ending at that moment. She sat again and looked at me, and I was like, why is she sitting here again? And everybody looked at the watch, and it was precisely that time I'd said. And I was like, oh boy, okay, that's accurate. And she would show me several times until I really got it. Okay, time, there's no problem with time. They know time very well. They just don't live up to it as we do, or are engaged with it the same way or limited by it. But if you say time, live up to it. Commit to it or don't commit to it, but be clear about it. I passed out 2 weeks ago. Nala, my dog had a kind of attack several times a day. She pulled her head back and was upset for a moment. It's not completely gone. Could this have done way to, could this also have been a way to make it clear to me that I was not doing well? Yes. So dogs love taking over illnesses and problems from people, from their owner, definitely from people they love. Sinya has done it several times where I had to tell her. She does it a lot with my dad, with me, with Jonas, with the people she has very close to her. She does it, and she gets unwell physically, and I have to tell her because she's a very fit dog until the very end, you could say. And I remember once when she started drinking immense amount of water before we went down to Germany. My dad was very ill, and so I went there to do body work every day on him. And she was drinking like amounts. So I was like, I have to watch out. The day we came home, no, the second day we came home. So we were gone for a week or more. And this started before. When we came home, something's off with this water drinking. So I just started asking her, Sinya, is this yours? Is it for somebody else's? What's going on here? I just start asking her. And what happens, sorry, the sun is moving so much here. I just start asking her, and the energy that shows up, you get the acknowledgement. It just goes, oh, for me, it usually just opens up or gets lighter, or she acts differently. She won't necessarily just stare at you. Yes, that's correct. You'll see if you ask a lot of questions, there will be a shift in whatever way when you're coming to the point. And you have to ask a lot of questions around it and not with conclusions in them. You start, go there. Is it yours? Is it your body's? Are you creating? There's two. I just go. And then somewhere like, is it somebody else's? And I'm like, there was an energy on that. And then let's just start naming people. And then at the name, this came to, for example, once with my dad's name, there was so much energy. And I was like, oh, that's it. So I asked her, like, stop working on it. We can contribute, but stop taking it over to your body. And I was very clear, and I did some clearings, but very firm on her. This is not okay. We're stopping now. It all gone away. In that moment, it stopped. And she did not drink obsessively anymore at all. And so I acknowledged that this is happening. And I thanked her. Thank you so much. But let's contribute to my dad. Let's not take it over. I'm not sure what she has done last year. Again, she has been working on my dad a lot. And I saw a couple of things where I'm like, well, let's see what that creates. I don't want to go to conclusions because it's still in a movement and an energy. I'm like, there's things going on that she chose. And then I'm just aware of it. I don't try to defend it or explain it or justify it. I just see the energy of it. Okay, but animals have an amazing capacity to take over things of their owner, or to do it to create attention. So it can also be that she created something so your body got aware of it, or she took it over. Or often when animals create things that usually don't have, I just look what's required here. And if you know body work of access consciousness, have done any body work, start doing that on the bodies of the animals, because it contributes to your body. They sometimes know how to create a different body for you by asking something for their body. It's pretty amazing. I've seen it several times in actions now where animals, horses create belly pains or like things that are not theirs. So the owner would start doing energy work on them. And the animal, when I asked the animal if they have a problem, they just don't have any. I was like, what? And what shows up is they do it because it's good for the person that is doing it. I'm like, that's amazing. So animals can show you a lot. If you're willing to ask questions, you can also see what else is required for you too. But I'm very clear that she's not allowed to do certain things, but she does it. It holds 10 seconds and then she can choose it again. For me, there's a difference if she's picking up and puts it in her body, or she's contributing to another body. So I asked her, hey, let's contribute to other people's bodies. Let's not take it over, pull it out and put it in our bodies. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then you change and then you ask her something else. And I love discerning and creating points of views. I also often look at entity clearings with animals. I got more aware starting with the Conscious Force, Conscious Rider too on doing that. But Sinya showed that first year. It was so funny because she was all over the place, and Jonas picked something up. So we started clearing entities. She would want to run away. We would have to hold her to do this. And the moment we cleared the entity, I remember the first time we did it, it was so intense. We saw energetically something jumping out of her and jumping away. I'm like, what was that? You can just sense that energy of running. And I was like, whoa. After that, it was in the evening we did it. We went out for a walk. she's never ever been so attentive towards us, because everything is like, ooh, we're looking everywhere else. We're dragging the owner with us, the Sinya, and not caring about us at all, kind of thing. Because she's like 1.5 or something like that. I was like, everything's more excited. After that clearing, she started looking at us where we were, and I was like, huh, that was different. So then we tried things out a lot, because we were 3.5 years together. So we tried all the things with her as well, because it worked with us. And then how does it work with animals? So we just tried everything. How do the tools work with business? We tried them too. And with animals, you get quite often energetic awareness. They can sleep and they don't really care what you're doing or that. Sometimes they go away if they don't want something more. Sometimes you need to hold them a little bit because they're it's unknown. I saw that with Sinya sometimes, and she was like, but if I wanted it to happen, if I wanted to do this to make it better, that was my projection. She would not be okay with that. She would like, no, that's not me. I'm not doing that. So any projection of a result or why I wanted to do it because it would be better for her, no. But if I asked, and she became so used to body work that she would like do this with her paw on wherever she was, here on the sofa or on the ground, until I came and sat next to her and started the process. And she's like, okay, thank you. And I was like, oh, this demanding bitch. Why aren't we all that demanding? And I was so grateful for her showing me so clearly what she required, when she required it. And I was like, she'll just have it. It's not taking it from anybody. She'll just have it. And she'll ask for it super clearly. If she didn't get it from one person, she'll ask for the next one. When we're out walking and I maybe got a phone call and it got boring, or I was just sitting there and resting or whatever, and she wanted to play, she would find people to play with. She would find somebody or create that she had people to play with. And usually whole family with lots of kids, and had a blast. Like, I don't know how many families I've met in Sweden, Denmark, Italy, Spain, that have had so much fun with her. She created her own reality. I create my own reality. We create a reality. But I also acknowledge her to create hers. So she did the most amazing things to have fun. So it's not always through me. It's the same with kids. A lot of parents, well, around me, I see their kids don't create without their parents. They need their parents to create or to play. So it's a bit of control, but also they weren't empowered either to create their own things. So they are always in contact with. And I was like, there is a different possibility when you empower everything around you to know, and to know that they can create. So there's no difference for me if an animal can create or a person can create. It looks different, yes. I can't project the same things. And there's other things that happen with animals as they are in an environment. I mean, I know somebody's cat just got hit, most likely by a car, and had an accident and needed to be put down because it couldn't breathe anymore. And she was like looking at that as from a point of view of choice. And I was like, yeah, things do happen. And it's not necessarily that the cat chose directly that to happen. But I don't try to put that in certain box if she chose it actively or not. I've seen choice differently with animals, and they don't have a problem leaving their body. They usually don't want to leave you. So sometimes when I've been asked to talk to people's animals, because they've been insecure if they're wanting to leave or not. And maybe some of them were where they had problems for a longer time, where they're uncertain and they don't want to do the wrong thing. And it's very intense to have that conversation with an animal and an owner asking me to do that. And it was also very easy, because I always asked the animal to be very, very clear. And then I asked the owner, depending on what conversation I could have with them, if they're willing to receive when it's time, if they're willing to receive from the animal the clarity when they would like to leave. And so far, I have not seen it not to be clear when we are okay receiving it. That's one thing I'm like, wow, they're very clear. And sometimes there is also this thing, it's just now because there's an accident or something else. That's for me also, well, that's where we choose something that's very human. I remember talking to my vet before, well, Sinya wasn't well. We just had a great conversation, and he's very, very aware guy. And he said, well, we're more human with animals than we are with people, in the way we treat them at the end, and the choice they have, and the way we don't want animals to suffer, but it's okay for people to suffer for a long time. And it's a conversation that's very sensitive, and most people would not maybe have that openly, or there's so much points of views what's right and wrong, and I respect every person's individual choice about that. But I do see that we're not always treating people very well in the last time of their life. And I'm grateful that animals can choose and we can contribute. I'm really, really grateful for that. Sinya chose, I mean, she got very sick, she had surgery, and it went well, good, bad. And I kind of knew that, okay, this can go 50-50. But then I saw it's not going so well, and I started creating more. I think it's like cancer and lots of other stuff that we're creating in our body. And there's always an energy of a possibility. That's what I saw. So some days we were doing really well, and you could see there was like a generative energy. And then I could see, well, that lasted maybe for 5 hours or something like that. And you could see a different energy. So it was like this, on, off, on, off. And at some point I was like, oh, this is not going in the right direction. And then it was like time for me to look at this and really be clear, and also be clear to her. And at the end, when she was very, very tired, she wouldn't walk a lot. And I remember in the midday, we were going out for pee and poo, and she did it, and she jumped in the car, and then she said, I'm not getting out of it. Like, she would not react when we came home, and she has never, ever not reacted when we leave a car. Like, she loved jumping in and she loved jumping out. The same energy, very rare that she wanted to stay, but then it's because of something else. And she was like, it was the energy of done. There was no action, there was no joy, there was no aliveness. And I was like, now, Saturday afternoon, and I didn't want to go to the clinic that is open 24 hours because I couldn't, they don't know her. They can't have the conversation of knowing. There's a different conversation when they have met your animal. At least that works for me very well. And I had a really great conversation with my vet. But the funny part, I had a business card from him. At some point, I received his home phone number because after the surgery, he wanted me to be able to call any time of the night if something happened. And I just pinged in my head. Sinya showed me, you have the number. And I was like, where do I have that number? Because I had just put it in a pile. But I go up to the apartment, I find it directly, I call them and say, I think it's time. And I'm so sorry I'm calling late, because of course the practice was closed. They do have Saturday open. But it was so interesting. Both were there. Him and his wife, they're both vets. It was alone. We were alone in the whole place. And I was like, and I still could see, I mean, we did tests and blah, 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 blah. And I knew we don't really need to do any tests, but they wanted to do the right thing kind of thing. And then at the end, we just went out and was in the sun looking at the horses. And then Sinya said, it's now. And then she just went on her own back inside the vet's office. She never wanted to go really in there. She doesn't really, why would I go in there if I cannot go in there? But she went in through the room. She went on her own. So that was when I saw 100% her choice. And she knew exactly what was going to happen. There was not a reaction anywhere in the whole process there. And I was like, this is beautiful. She created a whole vet place for her own with 2 top vets that were there 100% for her and me. And I was like, so creation up in the last minute. And I was like, oh, and she really liked when it was super quiet in a vet's place. And she showed me that several times. So she would always make me, I got aware to make appointments when there was less people there. And it's so funny where every animal can create. If we acknowledge them, we encourage them, and we know it works. We know and we trust it. It's amazing what they can show you and what they can create with you. So it's not you creating on your own, it's you creating with the animal. But if the animal doesn't get acknowledged that it works to create with them, they do certain things, but you can do so much more. It's like, I don't know if you ever created a business, if you talk to your business, and this is for me the same thing. I talk to my business, I know my business can create. It doesn't only require me, but I can be part of the creation. That means that I have certain roles in this reality, and there's energetic things I create with my business. I don't give it up for my business to do it. We create together. So I'm constantly in contact, ask questions, possibilities. It's alive. An animal is alive. It's a gift. It has so many possibilities. it can contribute to you so much. I remember one of my drives then to Spain. I had 3 winters in Spain with her, and this was also a deal and deliver I made with her. She wanted to be out more. I got that, and I didn't like the cold winters, and said to Sinya, what if we drove to Spain and stay there in the winters, and we could be outside many more hours per day? Would you like that? And they was like, yeah, whatever that meant. And then I said to her, well, you do have to create that the business runs a little bit more online, and this works really well because then we can be there a lot more. So we ended up there first time 2 months and the next time 5 months. And it's amazing what she created on the way. I was very tired when we started driving. Might be not the best choice, but the first time. What happened was that in the night, she would lay next to me in the beds. She loved beds. She would lay on top of my feet, and it would be running any body work on me. It was incredible how the whole energy came from my feet, and like I was really well in the morning and I was so exhausted in the evenings. She doesn't usually lay on my feet like often. She would lay next to me and do things, but it was very interesting how it was very different on that tour down to Spain. And this is where they can gift you anything. What if you're willing to ask for it, willing to receive it, and willing to allow magic into your life? From also, wow, sorry, I didn't put down the letters here. And this is where you can choose to create anything with your animal, and see also, because this is for me, animal, kids, whatever you like, see what you can explore, because your animal might have gift in certain areas, all that different. I mean, there's animals that are also quite lazy. It's like people, we're all different. When I chose Sinya, I was very clear on the energies I would like to have with a dog. I've always written like a little list, not like it has to be the shape or the size or all that. It's the energy and what I wanted to create with her. I'd so love to have this list. But I remember after a year or 2 or 3, it was that energy. And I was like, oh. And it always has, when I do that, it always clicks when I see the dog. So I don't go with a certain race or I ask the energy. And that's something, there's always an amazing contribution when you're willing to ask for. I would love to help people find the dog that works for them, because I see so many dog owners choosing the dog from the breed, usually not energetically compatible, because when they're babies, they look a bit different. And you're not always aware of what that requires from you. And also what I can really recommend is borrow lots of dogs, so you get to know the tendencies of the different dogs and the energies, and you just get a lot of awareness. I got aware. So it's just between Tara, I had another black dog, double so big as Sinya. Sinya and Tara took a year between to get Sinya from after I lost Tara. I don't know how many dogs I had at home or dog sitted. I remember having a boxer. I really love the energy of boxer, but I really did not like the drooling. It just did not work for me on the drooling. I was like, no, no. And I met a couple of dogs that really drooled a lot. Like, and I never had a drooling dog before, so I wasn't really aware in my universe what that meant. So I got really clear on that. And I didn't want to have too long furry hair too at that point. There were certain things that I was like, oh, no, yes, no, yes. And I loved it because every dog contributed to me for more clarity. And then I got some facts where I was aware. And then there was much more of the energetic creation I wanted to have in my life with the dog. Because dogs are for me, like, it's for me obvious I want to have dogs in my life. And I'm more like, how many dogs can I have next time in my life? How many horses can I have in my life? And that's one of the questions I have. Do I want to have like not a farm, but lots of them? That could also be. I've always looked at that. I think you got one of my hairs here. Sorry. I've always looked at having lots of animals, but I still want to travel. So I'm looking at it, I'm asking questions about it, because animals are just such a gift energetically. And I like the liveliness and the creation and the to-do and being out there and doing fun things with them. So I'm not, I just want to have cats in my house. I'm not that. I like adventure with animals. I like horses and dogs where I could have cats as well. That's not necessarily a problem at all. And I see you can also create difference with cats as well, where if you're willing to go outside of the box with them as well. But I do like dogs better for me. But this is you have your preferences. I just bought cat pictures if you haven't seen them on Facebook. I love them. They're so alive. I'm gonna put them up there. And I was like, I would never thought to buy a cat. Picture that painted beautiful cats. But I like the energy that animals create. And for me, a picture can be very alive as well. So what gift would we allow the animals to be to our lives? And what if we received it without a point of view, with no definitions? And also, what if we started to do less interpretation? So what I hear a lot of people do is the interpretation of what animals say or mean. And a lot of people would words to animals' behavior, thoughts, and things like that, where I see it's not very often accurate. It's a definition we have. We almost like have a definition, and then we have an interpretation from that and what they do. And we think that's awareness and communication. At some level, yes, but in many other levels, it's just projections and conclusions of things. Where I see when you ask them a question, you get much more awareness and outside of the box that most people have defined animals to be in. And those could be really good, nice boxes, but they're still boxes for animals. And I wonder if we would be willing to allow animals to show us a different world. I always ask Sinya, hey, would you show me a different reality with you? If you just show me a different reality, like question, that was basic question I had. And then I would add different things. I asked her a lot of things about money. Or for me, it was just obvious. Ask any question and she would start providing me with information. It was almost like the most amazing bridge for consciousness, because I allowed to receive from her. I really was willing to receive anything from her. And I'm so grateful for that. I didn't necessarily think that I was just doing it. And now after a couple of years, I could see that I was willing to, and I saw when people weren't, or they wouldn't even consider doing this with their pets. And I have a lot of great friends that have a great animals, but they're not creating with them. They go for walks and then they lay at home, and they choose breeds where you can be so active. And I'm like, why would you choose that? Why would you? And this is where there's no dog that is. It's also interesting how many judgments and points of views people have about races and dogs. Oh God, such a world of judgment. And when you get out of that, it becomes really fun, because when you start asking, what can I create with you? Like, you talk to the animal as you're talking to me, or you're talking to a kid not in a baby voice, no baby voice. Everything I started learning was from doing things. I did listen to some dog training people that did it differently. They were more energetic, they connected and all that. So I saw a lot of that, but then also with the access tools and how Gary was talking about horses, I was like, oh, I get that. And then I started implementing them with dogs in general, a lot of dogs, and saw how incredible easy it was, because they connected with the energy directly. And having no point of view, they connect directly too, but also the willingness to be any energy. She showed me that intensely. I could scream so much, but if I didn't mean 100%, she wouldn't stop if she was running somewhere at all. But if I meant it and I started quickly, I didn't let her run away far, she would like catch the energy. Oh, you mean it? The same thing when she was loose most of the time when she was younger, a little bit more in the leash, of course, because she would just like boing, jump everywhere. But I still remember when in the woods and I let her free. I had heard like Susie say, making a deal, ask her a question, ask the dog if she's going to run away. And if you get a yes, you know, and if she get a no, well, we'll see if she doesn't. But there was this clear energy when she wanted to run away, because she would run off her energy. She would get so much change. Like if I had a class, if I had a bars class, and then in the evening, she would require a much longer walk, and that meant off leash, being able to go on an adventure. And she had a tendency to run in one direction, she would come back from the other, and I had no clue how she did that, because there's a lot of different things she would have to get through. And I was like, but she did it, and she was so freaking quick. One of her dog friends was a Whippet. They raced. And Sinya was freaking fast. And I was like, oh. At some point I didn't like when she was gone too long. I knew she'd run away. I knew she would come back. But at sometimes like, Sinya, doesn't work. You're way too long. And I start getting worried. And then I started, what got clear to me, I told her, you can run off as much as you like, but when I start getting worried, you have to come back and say hi. Then you can go off again. And if you don't, I'll put the leash on you. This was my deal. And I said this every time we come to the forest. This is what we're doing. Energetically, we're very clear on that. Beginning, worked half good, half bad. Not really. But we did a consistent choice in that all the time. And when she came back and she was gone too long, leash. I did it. I like on, even if she didn't want it in the beginning. And after a while, when we did this very consistent, because it wasn't about not her being free, it was about a choice that she has to make. So when she knew she was gone too long and she would come back, she would just stand next to me, really next to me, and wait. So I hooked her in. She knew. And it was so hilarious for me to see, because anytime she would run away and she would just come in the moment I was starting to think, hey, too long, and she'd say hi, and then she would run off again. And that was all I required. It was all I required, a hi. And she would do that from further and closer by, and I was like, thank you, and then she went off again. And this is something I was very, very, very grateful for her, showing that, and we could make it quite clear. It did not mean it worked always. So that's one thing for me. Consistency works well until you need to be more clear again and be always connected with your choice. You being present, because if you check out, you cannot expect them to deliver, because you're basically showing them you're not there anymore. So why do they have to even come and be present with you? Something I'm eternally grateful for. She also trained me to be present on a call and with her. That I sometimes did well and sometimes failed really badly. I'm also going to find, it's in German though, but there's a facilitation in a program I did online where she interrupts the Zoom to be on it, and she would not give in until she was able to talk to the person that was in the Zoom. And that person told me that lately. And I was like, oh, I remember that conversation. I think she made us also contribute to the earth. There's something, I need to find that little episode. It was amazing. So this is where I'm really grateful, and there's no end to what we can receive from animals. And what I see, our job, or what it is for, not really job, but we can choose as people, is start asking for it and start asking animals a lot of questions. And also be honest when you don't get it, when you're not clear, and also be willing to look. They don't always want to do what we ask them, for me, it's not what they have to do something because I tell them. It's not bad. So when I ask a question and I want an answer and I'm not receiving it, they might not be able to gift it in that moment because it's not there. So there's a lot of things. If you have no expectations and allow it to show up at any time, are you willing to let it show up? And are you allowed to allow them to communicate in the way they can, and also ask them to be more clear when it's not clear for you? That's something I'm like, wow, it's been so much fun to let animals know when it's not been clear to me, because then they start showing me in a different way. And I was like, that's fascinating. That's amazing. And I always trusted her to know where she would like to be. It's very rare I even compromised and not finding the best dog sitter at that moment. It happened. And it also happened that it was semi-good, and she would be clear with that and knew when it was okay. And then she was like, no, and then she was also like done with them. And it was very interesting just to move forward. Not everybody liked it, and sometimes maybe I could have handled things better. And I was out traveling a lot. I don't really have great excuses, and I don't have really good examples of it either, but there's certain things that it's required of us things to do as well. And people require more than animals. Animals just can leave. They don't usually need to say goodbye. They just want to leave. I do remember Sinya learning or doing it for people, going to the people and saying goodbye. And just because people required it, she would do it. And for the kids, she would also do it. But it's always forward. We're moving forward. We don't need to move backwards. And I never use the past to project on an animal what they're choosing now. I could have it as information, but it's never justifying a situation. It's more just information. They don't require the past either. They don't live in the past. We do. We often bring it with us. They might be able to show us something different as well. but we do love projecting out of them, then it sticks them as well. So we can change a lot. And the tools and the clearings and the questions, I can just emphasize, they work extremely well. If you haven't read Talk to the Animals, I could also really recommend that book. I learned a lot reading that book about body processes and how they worked. And it was so funny because it changed how I worked with people. This is in the beginning of Access when I started doing Access classes. So I remember that very well. I'm like, wow, that's really, that Sinya was in Stockholm on I think it was a BNU class. Let's say it was a BNU class. I think it was. It was very interesting. Last thing before we end. She went up on stage at some point. She was off leash. She went up on stage to Dane. As she does with her paw, she's just doink, doink on his leg. On Dane, and Dane looks like, what do you want? And he was working a person and basically ended up putting one hand on Sinya's body and one on the person and talking, how Dane talks and does lots of things at the same time. And Sinya was just standing there. And you could see this energy moving around a lot, and they were talking, da 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 da. So she was just standing there doing her thing as she does. For a while, it was quite a long time. I have a photo of that. And then it was done. She just walks away. He's like, done. She looks at Dane, moves. It was really fun to see that. And in that class, there was also, when I entered the room, there was a younger boy, looks at Sinya, and you see there was some connection. And the mom comes up to him, and because he's usually afraid of dogs, and I didn't know this, but I had her on a leash at that moment, and the mom was like, hey, are you afraid? He said, no. And she looks at him, and he's like, no, she said she's good. I was like, I've heard that several times where the kids say what Sinya tells them. Like, it's so clear that they talk directly, and Sinya often says, hey, I'm good, I'm nice, or whatever, that there's no problem, and the kids let go of their whatever experience, because some kids have experience with dogs and are good. Most just pick up the worries of their parents, and they're not there. So you can change that very, very quickly. At the end, last week, Sinya even changed one girl's in the park here, Muslim girl, little girl. She was reacting as if she was afraid, but it was from learned behavior, not from the grandparents were there. And they were so willing to allow her to change it. So Sinya was there until she changed it. Just to see that she would never ever give up on contributing to change. And she did that with fear. I don't know how many sessions, both paid and unpaid, lots of unpaid, and also changing allergies towards animals. She has helped lots of clients change their allergy reactions in their bodies. So I know allergies you can change. It's very, very individual how they change. So I just wanted to mention that in case that shows up where your animal has a gift to create change there. So thank you so much. If you have anything or I can contribute to your animal in any way or to you, let me know and connect. I might be doing other stuff with animals now. I've started writing a little bit about it, and we'll see. It's pinging me to do a couple more things with it, and I love working with horses, so I'll be doing that. And most likely also doing some more work with dogs. Let's see. I'm just grateful. I just want to contribute and get the possibility to contribute to whatever awareness there is about dogs and what Sinya has been for a gift in my life. So thank you all for showing up, and everybody listening to this later. And whatever contribution I can be, just ask. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lisen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a big evening.